Hey, this is the video for Diffusion.1, Passive Passing. How can we describe diffusion? Follow along as I read. In nature, molecules are always moving, bumping into each other along the way. This causes the molecules to gradually move apart until they are relatively evenly spaced, moving from more crowded to less crowded. When riding the subways during rush hour, you have probably noticed that it is easier to exit a crowded train than it is to push your way onto a crowded train, as shown in the picture. The same is true in nature. This movement of particles from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration is called diffusion, a form of passive transport, because no energy is expended. Remember that concentration is a measure of how much stuff is in a particular area. We need to make note of this sentence here because there is a definition. We see the definition diffusion, or we see the definition for diffusion, and diffusion is in bold. So please define this word in your own words. Let's move on. Diffusion is an important process because it allows substances to move around in nature. For example, oxygen diffuses from the lungs into the bloodstream, where it will eventually diffuse into all cells of the body. Likewise, glucose diffuses from the intestines into the bloodstream, where it will eventually diffuse into all cells of the body. Finally, just as important raw materials diffuse into the bloodstream, waste products also diffuse out of the bloodstream. We have an example right here. And my question is, when oxygen diffuses into the lungs, where is the concentration of oxygen lower? Consider also where the concentration is higher. Indicate that in the margins. Moving along, please note the diagram before I read. During the diffusion through a membrane lab, you notice that substances diffuse from areas of higher concentration to areas of lower concentration. Recall that a starch-filled cell was placed into a beaker with iodine, a very small molecule. After several minutes, the contents of the cell changed color to blue-black. When analyzing the data, it was determined that iodine diffused from the beaker, where the concentration was high, into the cell, where the iodine concentration was much lower. It can be proven that the iodine moved into the cell because starch is a polymer that is too large to pass through the cell. In conclusion, the starch inside the cell changed color from white to blue-black because it came into contact with the iodine indicator. In your own words, I want you to explain what happened during this lab to cause the color change.